Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. If you like spooky stories, you are in the right place. You will always find something different in our stories, and in every new video we will take you to a completely new world. This story is about a group of friends who went camping in the woods and experienced something scary. Click on the subscribe button so I can reach 500 subscribers because we bring new scary stories every day. Now, are you ready to dive into the depths of fear? Then let's begin. Attention! I share horror stories every day at 1500 hours p.m. My name is Jason, and this is the story of what happened one unforgettable night. A group of friends and I decided to head to an abandoned campsite a few hours outside of town. On the way, we passed the time by telling each other horror stories and laughing. We had only one thing on our minds: to enjoy nature, relax, and have a weekend free from any problems. When we arrived at the campsite, there was nothing but the dark silence of the surrounding forest. As we set up our tents, I noticed that the sound of the wind had taken on a strange tone. Still, I thought it was just one of those small things that happen. But before we started spending the night, I thought everything was normal. We spent the night sitting around the fire, chatting. Everyone was happy, but suddenly a cold breeze blew, and the fire seemed to dim. "Did you hear that?" Sarah said. We all fell silent and listened carefully. For a while, we didn't hear anything, but then I heard something that sounded like a scream from far away. I quickly turned my head, but there was no one in sight. "Just the wind," I said, but the feeling of unease inside me kept growing. As the night went on, we realized things were getting stranger. The forest around our tents felt as though it was alive. For a moment, I was sure that each of us had seen something move in front of us, but we couldn't figure out what it was. Then, Emily took a step and noticed a trail. "No one should have come here," she said. Everyone was nervous, but no one dared to say anything. Until morning, we did nothing but walk along the riverbank at the campsite. By sunrise, the fear had somewhat eased. But something was missing. Even though several campers like us had left, we felt as though something was watching us. The next day, no one questioned the fact that the area was abandoned. But that night, things got even stranger. The path outside our tent had changed in a way none of us had seen before. There were new tracks on the ground, as if someone or something had been moving around us. Emily, terrified, said, "This wasn't an abandoned place." We immediately wanted to pack up our tents, but suddenly, we started hearing a terrifying whisper from deep within the campsite. Out of nowhere, a figure appeared, its silhouette barely visible in the dark. It was a shadow moving quickly toward us. I froze. None of us could speak. That figure was walking toward us, its footsteps blending into the silence of the night. And then, everything happened suddenly. The figure just stared at us with its eyes. We didn't hear any words, just felt its terrifying gaze. For a moment, I thought the figure wasn't real. But in that instant, I knew what was happening was real. We all suddenly began to run, but the figure slowly kept following us. The entire night, voices and figures followed us. With every step, it felt like something was pulling us deeper into the woods. And that terrifying entity came even closer. We ran all the way to the riverbank, but it vanished into the darkness. After a few steps, only silence remained. The figure was gone, but we were still drawn into the forest. Since that day, we never returned to that campsite. But I always felt like something was following us. It felt as though that dark figure was still with us. If this story has affected you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes, a dark forest and an abandoned campsite will never leave you alone. Today, we're going to take you to the darkest corners of nature. What if, while camping, you suddenly heard an unexpected sound coming from the depths of the forest at night? Or what if you felt someone silently watching you? How far can you really escape fear? In our story, we'll try to answer these kinds of questions. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to do so now, because here, you'll always find a new horror story waiting for you. Now, if you're ready, let's take the first steps into the world of fear together. My name is Isla, and this story carries the deep marks of a terrifying event that happened to me. That summer, I decided to go camping in the woods with 4 of my friends. We wanted to surrender ourselves to nature, get away from the city, and spend a few days with nothing but each other's company. But that night, we will never forget. And we never dared to camp in the woods again. At first, everything was perfect. The weather was amazing. We were sitting around the fire as the sun set, telling stories and singing songs. However, there was something. A silence. An unexpected silence. As the evening began to darken, suddenly the sounds of the surrounding forest stopped. The birds, the wind, even the insects were silent. Ava said, "Did you notice this? I can't hear anything in the forest." We all fell silent and looked around, but we didn't want to believe something was wrong. After a while, we began to feel like something was moving around the camp. The shadows between the trees around the tents were moving in an unusual way. Max said, "This isn't normal, right?" But no one could say anything definitive. We decided to spend the night sitting around the fire, but that night, there was more than just the light of the fire. As the fire began to weaken, the darkness deepened, and we were still sitting in silence. Suddenly, we heard a rustling sound. From deep within the forest, a faint noise was coming. An animal? I asked, but no one could say for sure. It was so dark that our eyes had started to adjust to the night, and that rustling sound was getting closer with every passing second. Then, the sound suddenly stopped, and we heard a scream. We all froze, looking at each other in fear. "Who was that?" Ava asked, her voice trembling. But the source of the sound was uncertain. Everyone immediately wanted to go to their tents, but things were about to spiral out of control. We quickly set up our tents, and as we sat in the area where we were going to spend the night, we started hearing more sounds from far away. A rustling, a whispering. But with one difference, the sounds were very close. They were almost circling around us. Fearing that something had happened to one of us, we wanted to go outside and look around, but at that moment, right in front of us, a silhouette appeared between the trees. The figure moved slowly, and our hearts were about to leap out of our chests. All our fears had become tangible. But there was something strange. The figure, in a terrifying way, looked very familiar. As it slowly approached, we couldn't see its face. Whenever the light hit it, it disappeared like a ghost. It vanished suddenly. We spent that night with our eyes wide open until morning. The next day, the whole group quickly left the campsite. But at that moment, no matter how fast we ran, a sound from deep within the forest always seemed to follow us. And that night, no one spoke a word to each other. Was that thing still there? Was it still watching us? One summer evening, my 4 friends and I set off to a campsite deep in the forest, far from the town. The weather was beautiful, nature peaceful, and all we could hear was the chirping of birds. Camping had always brought us peace over the years. But this particular camp would be a place where everything would change. After setting up our tents and lighting the fire, the sky began to darken. We sat around the fire, telling each other stories and singing songs. After a while, as the night wore on, I noticed something strange. Everyone was talking normally, but when I looked around, I saw things moving in the depths of the forest. Was it just my eyes, or was something really there? I shook my head, thinking maybe I was just imagining it. But then Max suddenly stopped and said, "Is anyone else hearing this?" We all fell silent and listened. From a distance, it sounded like someone was whispering from deep within the forest. But we realized that these sounds didn't resemble human voices. What we were hearing might be strange sounds made by another entity. There was a brief silence. Something had changed. Everyone looked at each other with unease, but none of us could explain what was happening. It wasn't just fear, it was a sort of unsettling awareness. In that moment, we all became aware of the darker side of the forest. Eli said, "Let's go for a walk." We all joined him, hoping it would calm us down. As we ventured deeper into the forest, a gust of wind came toward us, almost as if it was moving with us. The rustling of the trees grew louder. In the midst of all the silence, we suddenly noticed a figure quickly disappearing into a bush. We froze. None of us could speak. We slowly began to walk back. But as we did, we felt as though something was following us in the forest. There were footsteps behind us, but we couldn't see anyone. Each of us felt a strange sense of dread, but this fear was more than just a ghost. It felt like something was waiting for us. When we returned to the fire, we had searched the area. But sadly, these strange traces weren't just in one spot, they surrounded the entire campsite. When we got back to our tents, we noticed something. There were footprints outside the tents, and they followed the same direction as the figure that had disappeared. Then, from the depths of the forest, a light appeared. We couldn't believe our eyes. The light was shining from a distance, as though it had been waiting for us. But there was a deep fear inside me. Who could be waiting with such a light for so long? I wondered. It felt as though something from the depths of the forest was anticipating our presence. "Are you seeing this?" I asked. Everyone looked again and realized that the light quickly disappeared. After a short while, an eerie silence fell around the fire. But we had to spend the rest of the night there. Until morning, we might see another figure or the light might reappear, but no matter what, we were drawn into the forest. After spending the night, we never discovered what that light was or who it came from. But one thing was certain, there was more than just nature in the forest. There were many mysterious entities lurking there. A group of friends and I set out for a remote and isolated campsite nestled in the heart of nature. This summer, everyone was looking forward to escaping the hustle and bustle of work and school for a few peaceful days. Naturally, the memories of past camping experiences filled our minds. Every year, we'd leave the city behind, camp in the middle of nature, and tell each other spooky stories throughout the night. It had become almost a tradition. However, this year, there was a strange feeling inside me. Little did we know, a fear unlike any other awaited us deep in the forest. While driving through the outskirts of the town toward the forest, we were unaware of the terrifying experience that would soon unfold. After about 3 hours of travel, we stumbled upon an abandoned campsite. The ground was almost entirely covered in rocks, surrounded by decaying remnants of tents and old piles of wood. For a moment, a chill ran down my spine, but my friends, unbothered, immediately began setting up camp. "This is a beautiful spot," Lily exclaimed, her voice filled with cheer. But something about this place felt like a silent warning, as if the land itself carried a past we didn't know. As the night drew closer, we gathered around the fire. The sounds of rustling trees and distant night birds filled the air, but everything else was eerily silent. Yet, after a while, the night felt different from other campsites we'd visited before. There was something, an unsettling presence, a sensation that something was watching us from behind. I quickly glanced around, but all I saw were dark shadows. "Guys," Max said, breaking the silence, "I'm feeling something strange here. Let's take a walk, maybe it'll help us relax." We all agreed, and we began walking deeper into the forest. The trees were so close together that they almost touched, blocking out most of the sky. As we ventured further, the distant glow of morning light seemed farther away than ever. Slowly, the sounds around us started to change. Suddenly, we heard footsteps, as if someone was walking right behind us. But when we looked around, no one was there. My friends grew silent, and we all felt the eerie presence drawing closer. With every step, we slowly began to backtrack. And then, from the depths of the forest, we heard a whisper. Before we could make sense of the whisper, we saw a figure moving through the bushes. It was slow, deliberate, and although it appeared to be looking directly at us, its face was almost entirely obscured. Someone screamed, but before we could react, the figure vanished. We stood frozen in terror, unable to speak. We hurried back to our campsite, but when we returned, something was wrong. There were deep footprints around our tents. But these prints didn't belong to any of us. Someone, or something, had been circling our tents. In a panic, we scanned our surroundings, but no one was in sight. Silence took over as we huddled around the fire, each of us avoiding eye contact. We were too scared to speak. After a while, a strange light appeared deep in the forest. It was far away at first, but then it seemed to move toward us at an alarming speed. Shadows danced around the light, as if something were behind it. Lily took a step back. This isn't right," she whispered. But the light quickly disappeared. We waited in the darkness, but nothing happened. Everyone was on edge, too afraid to move. Eventually, the first light of dawn began to break through the trees, but something still felt off. The fear from the night before seemed to follow us, lingering in the air. That light, it remained an unsolved mystery. By morning, we decided to leave the campsite. But something had changed. Despite everything appearing normal, there was an emptiness inside us. Even the sunlight seemed insufficient to ease the heaviness of the forest's presence. That morning, we would never fully understand what happened in the dark corners of that forest, but one thing was certain: we would never forget that night. If this story has affected you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes, a dark forest and an abandoned campsite never truly let you go. See you in the next video.